continue on with our chain maintenance level 1. So just going through, I guess, the different types of maintenance that we need to do for the different types of lubricants. So I was talking about solvent cleaning for wet lubricant chains, and what we need to do for the immersive wax and chain coating type lubricants. So this is a stereotypical wet lubricant chain that's done a couple of thousand kilometers off a customer's bike. So we can see things don't look amazing. I guess for me, 2,000 kilometers, like it's a relatively short space of time. Even if we got to starting to clean this chain after even just 1,000 kilometers, it's still not going to be amazing. But this is, I guess, what's fairly common. So if we're going to maintain our chain to try to obviously not have a grinding paste masquerading as a chain lubricant, we need to clean our chain periodically, and how often depends a lot on lube choice, where you ride. But so we're going to clean up this chain a bit. I'm not going to do a full clean because it'll take too long, but in short, this is how we do it. Get a container. So obviously cleaning this off bike is going to be vastly easier than trying to get this reset on bike. You're just not really going to get a chain like that reset back to no contamination on bike. So popping the chain off, popping it into a container. As I mentioned before, I like to use mineral terps. It's quite cheap. It's a great solvent to solvent off pretty well any wet lube chain. It has overall quite low environmental toxicity, and it is easily recycled, so you can dispose of it responsibly. So I put it in, give it a bit of a shake. Initially, you're not going to have to shake it for very long, and we can see that obviously our turpentine has gone pretty black. So that's why when I was the other episode upcoming, I talk about ultrasonic cleaning. One of the mistakes some people make will be putting their chain in the ultrasonic with solvent straight up and hitting go. Until you've got rid of the bulk of it, nothing's going to happen after the first 10 seconds. So it's literally a matter of, we just want to rip through the agitated container baths. So we'll see that bath number 2, it's not looking much better than bath number 1. So I'll pour that out. Okay, and even like after the first or second bath, so if we can see, and we might be able to hear this on the camera, but like I can feel even through my gloves that there's a lot of grit in there. But sometimes if you bend it, you can actually hear the grit that's inside the chain. Now, one of the things that you'll notice when you are cleaning a wax chain, even after a full mutter, once you've done your first couple of hot water baths, you get your chain and you pull it out and you move it around and bend it, it is silky smooth. Whereas here we've done our first couple of rounds and it's just like you can just feel and hear the grit that's still in there. And if we have a bit of a look in our container, we can see that there's a fair bit of crud in there. Now, I hadn't rambled on too much before, but your chain is by far your hardest working part on the bike. So when you're pedaling along, the chain is completing as it's whizzing through your drivetrain, somewhere around, depending on your cadence, chain rings and so on, but on average between 20 to 40,000 link articulations per minute. Every link has 8 separate sliding surface pieces. So that's why when we talk about how you can save 3 watts or 5 watts just by cleaning your chain, that's literally because you can imagine in a part where so much action is happening, a little bit of contamination is very quickly going to add up to a watt of friction. A little bit more, it's another watt. There's just so much going on inside the chain that small changes, when you multiply it out by what's literally a couple of 100,000 pieces of sliding surface friction a minute, very quickly adds up to notable watts losses. So we'll move on to agitated bath number 3. So these are approximately sort of about 200 to 300 mil baths, but this is sort of why this is, what we talked about before, that if you're riding a lot in harsh conditions where you're going to get a lot of grit into your chain, and to try to keep the chain low friction, you are going to need to fully flush reset the chain to stop that high friction. And obviously if the chain is high friction, it's high wear. So the chain is going to wear out fast and the parts that it's running on are going to wear out quickly. So that's now bath 4. Things are still not looking great. So actually they're probably closer to 500ml baths those at the moment, because we're coming near the halfway mark on a 4-litre bottle. So I'm not going to go all the way on this because it'll just, honestly be a waste of chemicals. But we'll just sort of get to a point where I can demonstrate that we are actually getting somewhere. Oh, come off. So it's still pretty black, but it's less black. It's now going to a dark grey. So yeah, so we'll zoom in a bit more there. So you can see it's not quite pitch black like it was before. It's getting a bit lighter grey. So once we got through the bulk of the first ones, or the first rounds, this would be now about the time where we want to get the chain out, and we'll want to actually start to wipe the excess grit and surface stuff off the chain. Don't have to be too pedantic at this time. We'll wipe out the container so that we're giving our sort of second half of the baths a bit more of a chance. So popping it back in. And I'll make this the last one just for demonstration purposes. Okay, and so starting to get there. If I was doing a full clean on this, we're probably still looking at about another 4 to 5 baths to get that where the terps are coming out very clear. So, we can see that to clean a drip lube chain, that one was fairly dirty, but even if it's half as dirty as this one that we've used as a demonstration, I've still got about 5 baths to go on that to get that coming out clean. So, and you can see how much we've already, how much solvent we've already gone through to get it just to this stage. So even if it's half as clean, as dirty, as that, it's still, it's a lot of solvent that you're going through. Even if it's a quarter as dirty as that, considering we've still got about 5 baths to go, and that's where we are at the moment, it's still a lot of solvent that you need to go through. So this will hopefully start to, show that, the battle of trying to keep a wet lube chain really, what we'd call really low friction and really clean, it is a bit of a battle. If you're on a top wet lubricant, something like the Silka Synergetic that we mentioned, where it needs so little to lubricate for a very long period, and because there's so little wet lube on there, especially in road riding, it will stay very clean for a very long time. So you can get really long stretches of riding. If you just ride on the road and only, occasionally get caught in the wet, it doesn't really matter too much. The top wet lubes do actually do a very admirable job, especially the Synergetic was super impressive. So they've been the first wet lube tested to date that has actually done the first 1,000 kilometers of the test and recorded 0% wear, and it stayed super clean. So, if wet lube's your preference and you ride on the road and you pretty much only ride in the dry, choose a top wet lube. Periodic maintenance still absolutely yes, but you won't have as big a battle as that. But obviously you can see that flushing the chain clean even if you're using your top lube, it's a very good idea to get it reset, get any of that sort of crunchy, gritty stuff out of the chain, reset it back to as close to zero contamination-wise as you can, dry the chain, and then you'd re-lube it with your chosen wet lube. So, and for your periodic cleans, obviously just keep a container. So for those that are maintaining their drip lube or wet lube chains by doing some solvent cleaning rounds, just keep the container, store it somewhere safe, and literally you just do an annual run. Every state will have, the council will have, I guess, a hazardous liquid waste disposal. So you can just once a year just do a run down to your hazardous liquid waste disposal. It's free. So you can dispose of your degreases or mineral terps or shellite or whatever you're using. You can easily dispose of it responsibly just by doing that. So, all right, so we can we'll put a pause there. That's wet lube maintenance. Hopefully that sort of painted a bit of a picture, and we'll be able to compare that to cleaning a wax chain or a chain coating type lubricant in the next bit. So covered off before the fun challenge of keeping a wet lube chain clean. So this is a wax chain. So this is literally my chain off my mountain bike from having done a XC marathon race. So now normally if it was just my training chain and I was going to re-wax it, I would literally just get, I've got just some methylated spirits in a spray bottle that you get from a hardware store. Spray some methylated spirits onto microfiber cloth. And all we're doing, so normally I would just do this on the bike, is just literally I'm just going to wipe the chain on the outside with the methylated spirits. That's just going to pick up any surface dust off the chain, so that if I'm either using a chain coating lubricant, it's not going to drag any surface dust into the chain when I re-lube. And if normally say re-waxing, I'm not going to be bringing that surface dust into the wax in my pot. So the wax in the pot's going to stay amazing for more and more re-waxes. Now, if I did need to, or felt the need to give it a deeper clean, being a wax chain, all I need to do is boil up the kettle, which I have already done. And so obviously wear some gloves for a bit of protection. Use the same swisher tool that you use for waxing, or if you haven't got a swisher tool because you're just using a chain coating type lube, just literally you can bend up some wire into the shape of a swisher tool, loop it on, and as mentioned in the initial ramblings, we need to use an open container, because you can't shake boiling water because it will release steam and melt off. So just literally boiling water, I'm putting the chain in, and it's literally just a matter of, say if you have a bigger container it's a bit easier, but it's literally just a matter of initially letting it sit there for about 30 seconds, give it a bit of a swish. And this one, because it was a dry race, there's not much coming out, so there's not a lot of dirt or whatnot coming out. I'm not sure if the camera can sort of pick up that the water is sort of now a bit waxy. Right, just give it a bit more. And whoops. So normally all I do is a few rounds of that. Now you can pour, especially your Silka Hot Melt and the new formula of Molten Speed Wax, you don't have any concerns re-pouring that down the drain. We've got septic here, so I don't pour it down the drain. So that's sort of boiling water bath one. Now, if this was a drip lube chain, we would be able to hear and feel a lot of grit inside the chain. There's really, it's been bath one and it's already just really, really smooth. There's just none of that gritty, grindy sound that we heard before, and it feels silky smooth. So normally, because all I do is just use basically a kettle's worth, so I'd normally just give it sort of 2 to 3 rounds of the boiling water flush rinse. So normally I would have a better container, but because I actually cheat and I put my boiling water in just one of my ultrasonics, and I just run it in there just because I have them. But in the old days, before I had all these fun toys to do as part of my work, literally it would just be a nice open container of boiling water and a few baths, and literally, so if I'd done that, if I was doing this by myself, just sort of getting back from a dusty or dirty event, I would rip through the few rounds of boiling water, flush rinse, and that would take me all of about a minute. Dry the chain. So see, whatever comes off on the chain, that's just literally just wax that's coming off. So it's literally just a matter then of just dry the surface. And so that's my clean chain. So I can literally come back from a full mutter CX ride, and after basically 3-4 boiling water flush rinses, that is how my chain is if you're running wax. So if we compare that to what we would need to do if we had a wet lube chain to reset the chain back to nice and brand new and getting ready for the next relube. Personally, I think it's sort of fairly clear this is easier, and boiling water is a lot cheaper than going through litres of solvent, and it's a lot easier to dispose. It's in most houses you can literally just pour that down the sink. So now it's literally just a matter, because it's still wet, we just need to dry the chain. You can hang it to dry, just basically give it a few hours to dry. I, in the old days, used to cheat via using a heat gun. You can use a hairdresser. Some people use an air compressor, which is okay. Hot air works a lot better than cold air, because a hairdryer or a heat gun will heat the chain up and it evaporates the water out from the inside. So literally, if I was doing that, I would keep it on my swisher tool, just loop through there, and I would blow it with a heat gun or a hairdryer for literally about 2 minutes, pop it on top of my wax pot, turn the pot on, and basically go away and have fun. That's job done until I'm going to swish it and hang it to set. Or if you're using a chain coating lubricant, such as your Super Secret or UFO Drip, you're just going to put this now back on your bike once you've dried it. You're going to reapply the lubricant and work it in as per the instructions for that lubricant. So really that's it. So that's the difference between if you're running a chain coating type lubricant or if you're using a wet lubricant and sort of solvent cleaning versus boiling water. Really the only difference I spoke about, if you wanted to do an absolutely, I guess, really top level clean, because it is your dedicated race chain, or it's the chain you want to really keep mint, and you've done a really dusty ride or wet muddy ride, UFO clean. So I actually have, as opposed to the bottle, so it comes in a bottle that you can spray on your bike, but as you've probably picked up by now, I'm much more a fan of not doing cleans on bike. Off bike is much better. I pour my UFO clean into a spare bidon. I would just simply, I would still do the boiling water rinse first, because I want to, especially if it's been muddy, I want to shift all the mud and dirt out off the chain by flushing that out with the boiling water first, wiping the chain, and then I've already got a pretty clean chain, and now I would put it into my UFO clean, let it soak for 5 minutes, shake the bottle, and then once I pull it out, I'm literally just going to flush out the UFO clean, again just with boiling water. When you're washing UFO clean out, it will be initially white and then it will go clear. So as soon as the water's clear, you've flushed out the UFO clean, and then again dry and either re-wax or re-lube, and job done. 1 litre bottle of UFO clean, I've got about sort of 2/3 of it in here. By pre-cleaning it with the boiling water, I'm going to get 30 plus cleans out of this UFO clean bottle, no problems at all. So it's not the cheapest product, but if you do it that way, a bottle of UFO clean will last for ages and ages and ages. It will last a lot longer doing it off bike like that versus trying to do by spraying on bike. So that's what I would be doing. So this being my race chain for my mountain bike, I will actually physically be doing that. I won't bother sort of doing the whole thing on video, but this one, I won't do it now, sorry, but I'll dry it, put it in the UFO clean, let it soak, and then do the final steps after that to take care of that. And my race chain will be reset back to basically perfect condition, ready for the next race. So yeah, hopefully that sort of shows the fairly stark difference between the different types of lubes. The other parts that I spoke about before, so if you are using a lubricant like Squirt or Smooth, which sort of, they're not really that chain coating type, and they're also not a wet lube. They're something different called a wax emulsion lube. They're sort of original wax emulsion lubes. So they are a bit of a tougher clean. So as I mentioned in the initial video or part of the video, you can't melt those waxes off just with boiling water. They're a different type of wax. They're much more of a mineral oil based wax, so they won't melt off like that. So you're really looking at, again, you want to try to remove some of it. I actually would use a bit of mineral turpentine like I do with a wet lube on those chains initially, because the type of oils they have in the wax will solvent clean off a bit. So give them a couple of rounds in the mineral terps and wipe it clean, and then you would put it in your UFO clean to soak for that to be able to take care of the wax part. It is going to contaminate the UFO clean a lot faster than the super clean chain coating type lubricants and your immersive waxes, but that's just sort of part of the lubricants. It's sort of kind of why those lubricants cost sort of $15 to $25 a bottle, and your top chain coating type lubricants, they're costing you sort of $55 a bottle. In part, that's kind of what you're paying for. You're paying for a product that's much more refined and is a different type of wax and works differently. So it does give you a benefit on the maintenance side, as well as they're proven super low wear as well. So yes, but if there are a lot of fans out there especially for off-road riding, for Smooth and Squirt, and they are two really good products. So not recommending against them, just advising that they are a bit of a tougher clean when you do go to clean it. And I mentioned before, they are a bit of work re the immersive application, the application process. I recommend immersive. The instructions for Squirt and Smooth, they don't have that on their instructions. So it's one of those things that myself, if I was using that product, I would actually get a little container and immersively apply Squirt or Smooth once I'd done the clean. Failing that, I do have advanced application instructions for Smooth on my website. Same for Squirt, so just follow that steps through a few hints and tips and tricks on how to best apply those lubricants, because they do genuinely have some sort of fairly notable initial penetration issues, which just basically means that after you've applied it, you think you've got a lubricated chain, but deep inside, where it really counts on the pin and so on, the lubricant just hasn't penetrated that far. So they are a bit of work to get in. And so again, it's one of those things that they are very good dry contamination resistance, and also on the road you'll get a good stretch. But if you're riding in the wet quite a bit, or really dusty conditions quite a bit, and you're feeling that you're going to need to do some cleaning maintenance fairly regularly, quite quickly you'll you'll notice the difference between how easy it is to look after a chain that's either immersive wax or a chain coating type versus a wet lube, and versus say what I call the older style wax emulsion lubes like your Smooth and Squirt. They're very good, but they do come with a bit of a hit on the maintenance side in those situations due to the tougher clean and getting past the initial penetration issues. So that's why I personally sort of go for the latest gen stuff, which is really as good as you can get. So you pay more per bottle, but it does give you the benefits back on the other end. So that's probably bit of a wrap on maintenance level 1. The next one that I'll be doing on that front will be I guess a bit deeper clean stuff, ultrasonic cleaning, and whether or not ultrasonics are for you. So that'll be in a later episode. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and other YouTubey type things like share with your friends. So that'll keep you up to date with the latest low friction news and hints and tips. And also put any comments down below, and I can try to look at those and take them into account for future episodes.